For Inside Carolina, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this is a new podcast to the Inside Carolina lineup. Up in the Rafters, where 2017 ACC Player of the Year and National Champion Justin Jackson and myself will be talking about all things Carolina basketball. Before we get started, though, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Be sure you subscribe to Inside Carolina wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss out on any of the content the team at IC puts out. The support doesn't go unnoticed on this end. Speaking of support, we want to support the people that support us. So that's why I've got to mention our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. When it comes to Carolina apparel, they have everything that you could possibly want. The T-shirts, the jerseys, the hats, you name it, they probably have it. It's great people and great customer service since it's locally owned and operated by alumni. Don't be like me and wait until the last minute to get Christmas presents for your loved ones. You know, there's somebody in your life, might even be yourself, that could use some new UNC gear. So visit them in person on Franklin Street or online at johnnytshirt.com. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers get 10% off their orders. It's up in the Rafters. I'm Taylor Vippolis. I'm joined by my guy, Justin Jackson. Justin, you know, before we get started, I always like to go somewhere non-basketball first. So with the holidays approaching, I'm wondering, what is your favorite Christmas song and your favorite Christmas movie?
Favorite Christmas song, like Christmas Eve by Justin Bieber.
Classic.
We're gonna do a little modern Christmas twist. My favorite movie, I probably just have to stick with Elf. Elf is one of my favorite ones, so I gotta go with Elf.
You can't go wrong with Elf. I was gonna go Elf, and then music, I was gonna go along the same lines as you, go a little bit modern. Ariana Grande, Santa Tell Me. If we were going a little old school, I'd go Run Rudolph Run. It always makes me think of the Home Alone scene where they're racing through the airport. It's a great song to get you in the holiday spirit. But Elf was going to be my choice too. You can't go wrong with Will Ferrell and that ensemble of the cast that they have there. But going back to the basketball, Carolina 2-0 over the past week. They beat Elon, they beat Furman. Last week when we were talking about those games, we said that UNC had to be careful in its approach with those games being essentially glorified scrimmages against teams that they should take care of fairly easily. After watching, do you think UNC got something out of those games? And if so, what do you think they got out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like you were talking about and like we discussed last time, you know, you're able to go against a team that doesn't see you every single day, doesn't know all the ins and outs of your plays. Defensively, you're able to go against somebody a little different. I think, you know, the Furman game, I mean, you look at the first half, you know, they gave them a bit of a run, you know, like they were giving them some issues. But in those games too, it's kind of, you know, it's a lot more mental than physical, to be honest. You know, it's a matter of, you know, even in a game like that where a team who, you know, you're more talented than is kind of, you know, is giving it to you a little bit, mentally being able to stay focused and go the whole entire time and make your run, you know, in the second half like they did and kind of take control in the second half. And I think that's kind of what, you know, they get out of it. I think it's more mental than physical because at the end of the day, they're just more talented than those two teams. But being able to stay locked in and run what they're supposed to run and execute the things that they're supposed to execute, I think is what they get out of it.
Yeah, when a team like Furman sees North Carolina and they're going through the Dean Dome, they're obviously fired up playing against that jersey when they see it. And you can kind of explain why Furman hung around so long in that. And it's 39-39 at half. I'm sure a lot of Carolina fans all of a sudden, you know, they're not pressing the panic button, but their hand is hovering over the panic button when you go into a half tied with Furman. What did you see in the second half that kind of allowed Carolina to run away and kind of hold Furman in check where they outscore Furman 13 points in the second half?
You know, I think they solidified the inside game a little bit more in the second half. Defensively, they kind of brought the pressure up. You know, I think in the first half, they hit quite a few threes. Furman hit quite a few threes. And in the second half, they kind of, you know, applied a little bit more pressure. But I think at the end of the day, their whole what is going to get them far or not far is how much they are able to get that inside game going, with Armando down low. Obviously, we know we've got a lot of guys on the perimeter. We got Caleb Love, RJ, even Dawson's a perimeter threat, Brady on the outside. But when you get that inside presence like Armando going and you get him aggressive and you have him start to dominate down low, it just opens it up even more for those guys outside. So I think kind of seeing them solidify him from the jump in the second half, I think is kind of what kind of opens it up for them.
Yeah, Carolina is on a 5-game win streak right now, and this is also the 5th straight game UNC has allowed 63 or fewer points. So early in the season, we were kind of talking about what was going on with the defense. All of a sudden, the defense is playing a lot better. 5 straight games where you hold a team under 63. When you're holding teams to less than 63 points with the way Carolina scores, is that just a recipe for this team to have success in the future, where scoring should never be this team's problem, but if they can hold the team to, under their season total, that this UNC team is going to win more often than not?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times defense is the best offense. And I think, with how talented they are on the offensive end, if they can lock down on defense, that'll cause more transition opportunities. They'll be able to play against less of set defenses. And in games when they're not necessarily hitting shots defensively, being able to get easy opportunities from defense, whether that's getting a steal in the passing lane or getting a defensive rebound and pushing it. Those are going to be times whenever they're going to really need that. So I think you add a different dimension to this team whenever you hold teams, under those point averages and things like that. So if they can continue to do that, I think it just adds it makes them even more dangerous than they are offensively.
You mentioned in the Furman game in the second half, Carolina was really able to establish themselves in the post. They had a lot of mismatches with their size. And for the first time as a Tar Heel, Dawson Garcia scores in double figures in back-to-back games. And he does it by dropping 22 on Elon and then 20 on Furman. So that's quite a way to drop back-to-back games of double-figure points. But what do you like about Garcia's game and the potential he brings to this UNC game, to this UNC team? Because like you mentioned, he can do it in the post and he does have the skills to do it on the perimeter as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I think it's even more on the defensive end. I mean, we know that he can stretch the floor and hit shots from the outside. He can, he's got some good footwork and can make some good moves down low. But I think defensively, having somebody that's that versatile, but also at the same time that big, is huge. You have an Armando who is a great post presence defensively and offensively, but then you've got somebody like a Dawson or even like a Brady. Throw Brady into the conversation of somebody who can like switch onto guards or can switch and make their defense even more versatile. I think that is something that's very, very important in today's game. You see a lot of pick and rolls, you see a lot of that kind of game, that kind of basketball being played now in college, and having a big who you don't necessarily have to have in a coverage, you can just switch 1 through 4, or if he's at the 5, 1 through 5. I think that creates an advantage for North Carolina defensively, because then you don't have to get into rotations, you don't have to, have people dropping low and trying to, get out to shooters and all that kind of stuff. It's just being able to switch and stay in front of them. And I think that's huge for North Carolina if he can be that.
Hubert Davis in his press conference today mentioned that he has to know players to coach them, so he can know how players respond to getting coached, whether it's some people needing either more encouragement or some people being able to handle the straight truth from the start. I'm curious, what kind of player were you at Carolina when you were being coached and when you made a mistake?
I have always been somebody, man, who I want you to tell me what it is that I need to do better, what it is that I'm doing well, and things that I need to change. For me, Coach Williams was always, that's just who he was anyway. So whether I was a different kind of player or not, that's what he was going to give me. But I was always somebody that, for me, I want clear instructions. I want to know, okay, look, Justin, you're guarding this guy. You need to, if he likes to go right, you need to cut off his right hand. I need like detailed information and instructions. And so for me personally, that's just kind of how I was. Thankfully, Coach Williams was great at letting you know what it is that you needed to be doing or not be doing. But that's kind of how I was. But I think Coach Davis, having that approach to players, it causes players to respect you so much more, and that's why so many players respected Coach Williams so much, because Coach was always somebody that he wanted to get to know you. Like he didn't want it just to be the only interactions that you had was based on basketball, and I think Coach Davis is, taking that right as he becomes the head coach, as far as, okay, I want to get to know you as a person and kind of know how you tick. That way, when I coach you, I know that, okay, you might not be somebody who I can, maybe raise my voice with, or maybe you are somebody that I need to do that to get you fired up. So I love that Coach Davis is kind of taking that approach, because I think that makes the players respect them so much more.
So when you would make a mistake, there was never any feelings hurt when Coach Williams would start getting on you?
Hey, look, there's always feelings hurt. There's always times when you feel like you're not in the wrong and you really are. And, he has to take you to film and then you see, and, we're still human. So it's not like I'm just going to be like, sir, yes, sir, every single time. But at the end of the day, I always knew that was going to be better for me. So I was able to kind of take that criticism maybe just a little bit better than some people.
It's crazy how from playing football at Carolina to now coaching, the film never lies. Like
film never lies.
Players might have excuses and might have seen something different. That film never lies.
Oh, it never does. And sometimes it makes it look even worse because you have that pause button and that slow-mo button and all that kind of stuff. Like that's, I was watching film the other day, and there was a situation in the game, and the coach, he like paused it and did slow-mo. And when he did that, like I almost got upset, because I was like, that's not how it happens in a game. But like, you can't lie about film. Film's going to show you literally everything. So, I'm sure Coach Davis uses that to his advantage.
The other thing I wanted to ask you too about with how you did it in college, you were one of the best ever when it comes to being a good cutter and reading defenses. With this offense now for Carolina, there is so much more spacing. How much of cutting and reading defenses can be taught, improved upon, versus how much of it was just your natural ability and your basketball IQ out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that kind of stuff is based on IQ. I mean, you can definitely teach it. You can teach different places to cut at different times and that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of it is just kind of reading the defense and seeing what they give you. And also not getting in the way of the ball handler or somebody else that's, in the paint or whatever. But I think, that's one thing that I think as I'm watching, I think that North Carolina can get a little bit better at is cutting off the ball, whether it's a true cutter or whether it's a shooter, whatever it is. I think with the spacing that's involved with their offense this year, having different guys to cut and to make more opportunities for shooters, because at the end of the day, cutting isn't necessarily just for the cutter. Like when you cut, you might take two guys with you and it leaves an open shooter out there on the perimeter. So, I think a lot of it is just IQ. I think you can watch film and you can kind of learn different ways to be effective in that way. But thankfully, I think this team has a pretty high basketball IQ from what I'm kind of seeing, and I think they can learn to do that a little better. And obviously, it's shown that it hasn't hurt them that they're not great at it right now. So I think they're totally fine.
We've talked about how win now the rotations are for this Carolina basketball team under Coach Davis, playing mainly, 7, 8 guys. You've been in locker rooms across multiple levels. How do you think that would affect others that aren't playing that much or at all that might have expected otherwise? Or do you think there's an understanding there why they aren't seeing the minutes when you're looking at players like the freshman or like a transfer like Justin McCoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think and that honestly, it's only between Coach Davis and the players as far as how they handle it. But from being around Coach Davis and kind of seeing how he's handled the team, I would find it hard to believe that Coach Davis hasn't been pretty honest and transparent with certain guys as far as why they're not playing or what the situation was going into the season. Just because that's kind of how Coach Davis is. Coach Davis isn't somebody necessarily to leave people in the dark. But at the end of the day, it is tough, especially as freshmen coming in, you're super excited. You might have a good late night, you might have some good practices, some early scrimmages. And then all of a sudden you're not playing a lot. It's tough. But at the end of the day, those are the times where, okay, you know what? Now I got to focus on myself, right? I got to focus on myself. I got to get stronger. I got to do whatever it is that I know I need to get better at so that I can get playing time. And if they can, especially as freshmen, they've got a lot of basketball left. If they can keep their minds on that as opposed to, oh, I'm out of here, I'm transferring, or, oh, screw coach, or why am I not playing? Then I think they're going to do themselves way better in the long run than just sitting there and kind of, having a pity party.
The other player whose season might not have gone the way he kind of expected going into the season is somebody like Kerwin Walton, who hasn't made a field goal since the UNC Asheville game. He's 0 for 5 since. He didn't attempt a shot against Furman or Georgia Tech. As someone else who is known for his shooting, how do you handle going through shooting slumps, and what kind of encouragement would you offer up to someone like Walton, who I think everybody in the country knows how well he can shoot a basketball?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Last year the team wasn't as great. Honestly, a lot of times they were looking for somebody to score the ball, and Curran was one of those guys that could knock down some shots. This year the team dynamic is totally different. To be honest, he's not the same aggressive when it comes to like finding his shot that he was last year. I don't know if that's necessarily, it's probably honestly as a player, it's tough when you're not playing as many minutes. You don't get as comfortable. You don't get in as much of a rhythm. So some of that might not even be on him. But I think, it's funny because, we joke about it, we're in a group chat with a few guys, and we joke about guys like getting shots up after games and how much the media loves that and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of times it's a matter of guys continuing to just work on their game. Like his shot might not be falling, he might not be getting as much minutes, but at some point down the road, it's inevitable. At some point down the road, he's going to get an opportunity. It might not be, this season. It might not be, in the next couple of games, but eventually he's going to get his opportunity, right? And, when that opportunity comes, then all the work that you put in, you can put out. So, I think with a guy like Kerwin, I think he just has to keep his confidence. And when his time comes, he's already shown that he can do things. He can knock down shots and things like that. So it's just a matter of staying confident and continue to work.
When it comes to free throw percentage, Carolina is 71st in the country, shooting 74.36% from the free throw line. That's better than about 80% of D1 basketball teams and about what you shot your junior year when you won the national title. For context for fans, how well do you shoot free throws in practice versus in games, and where's the difference there, I guess?
Uh, Man, free throws are totally different in games than in practice. We, like you said, 74% doesn't sound like a great percentage, but that's actually a really good percentage as a team in game. You would probably say that you would want to be 85 to 90 in practice. Just like most people would say, you want to be like 70% or higher to shoot 40% from three in practice. Um, and so, honestly, free throws, to be honest, are all about reps and just confidence stepping to the line. If you step up to a free throw line in a game and you're not confident in the shot, then more than likely you're going to miss it. There's just so many. You're at the free throw line. It feels like you're by yourself. You've got all these fans sitting around. Um, and so, I'm sure when I was there, coach would always have us shoot a certain amount of free throws, either after practice or throughout the week. So I'm sure Coach Davis is doing the same thing, and it's showing that they're knocking them down when they step to the line.
Yeah, I was just looking at your free throw splits your junior year, and you shot 68% at home and 78%, almost 79% on the road, which you would normally think those are flipped. Was there something about the fans and them all throwing their hands and everything that you were just a little bit more locked in on the road, you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think one thing is that the Dean Dome is it's a lot bigger than most arenas that you would go to. So maybe the spatial, the visual of everything behind the basket, maybe. But to be honest, I wasn't a great free throw shooter in college, man. I really wasn't. That was a thing that I just never was that great at. But I mean, that's why I think I'm more impressed with the 74% than probably most fans, because I know how hard it is to shoot free throws. Um, so yeah, that was always one thing that I was never I was never that great at, bro.
Talking about the sight lines and the spatially in the Dean Dome, I think it was my senior year. I was doing a video for class and I was like, what would be a fun video? And I was like, let me text Marcus, ask if he wants to do a 3-point contest in the Dean Dome. And when I tell you my first couple of shots, like they didn't hit anything. They they were, and like I'm so like I don't consider myself a basketball player, but the first couple of shots were so out of character that I almost picked up my bag and was like, all right, let's head home. And I had the camera recording some of those early shots, and I was like, let's cut some of those in. It's gonna make the video funnier. But I I don't know what it was about the sightlines, and like I guess I'm just used to playing in like small high school gyms where all of a sudden like my depth perception was way off, and I don't think that's something that a lot of fans think about.
No, it's crazy, man. I mean, I joke with some of my buddies, like Kenny and Luke, even Marcus. But I always joke, like I swear my freshman year I averaged at least one air ball at home a game. Like, and most of the time it was from the corners. But it's wild what your brain does, man, whenever like when there's just not as much stuff around the basket. In high school, like, you might have some big high schools, but there's still, you know, the four walls around the gym aren't that far away from the actual court. And then you get in the Dean Smith Center, and it's like this massive place with all these people. Um, and it's different, man. And like fans don't understand it, right? Like fans, they're just watching the game and they're like, oh my goodness, like how could you airball a shot, or like why can you not knock down that open shot, and it's like, no, it's tougher than it looks, like it really is. But hey, that's why That's why guys go to North Carolina or schools like that, and that's why guys get paid a lot of money to be able to make shots in those big arenas.
Yeah, the corner was my worst spot too in the Dean Dome. So I feel like we're one in the same, right? Not
We
exactly the
definitely are.
company, not exactly the company you want to be in, but I'll take it. I'll take it. But next up for Carolina, it's a big trip to Las Vegas. You were 2-1 in the CBS Sports Classic, with the only loss being in Vegas to Kentucky, and what was probably the most entertaining non-tournament game that season. What do you remember most about those classic matchups that you played in?
Number one was that Malik Monk had 47. Um, but we won't relive those memories. Those are just fun games, fun and exciting games, man. Because you're playing against a really, really talented team that you won't see the rest of the year until the tournament. Those are the games that, just like a Purdue game, like the team had this year, or a Tennessee game, like those are always fun games because it's guys that you won't see. You might not ever see the rest of the season. And it's still really good competition. So I think these are games, I know there was some COVID stuff that popped up with UCLA or whatever, but I think if they do end up playing UCLA, I think it's going to be a really good test to really see where UNC is at. Obviously they've had a couple games here that, they've been just the more talented team and that kind of stuff. But I think going against a team like UCLA or whoever it might be, it's going to be a good parameter to kind of see where they're getting better at and where they still need to get better and that kind of thing. But those games are always so fun. You got fans that travel in, and you've got fans from both sides that are going crazy for the game. So I think it'll be a really fun game for them. I'm looking forward to watching it.
The team is excited to go out there because you are playing a top 5 team in UCLA. The fans are excited to go out there because there is so much to do, not just the basketball game, a lot of activities for fans to do in somewhere like Vegas. But as a player, is there any real difference between playing in, say, Chicago, Vegas, or Brooklyn? Or do you get memorable things in the city around the basketball to do?
You can. Coach Williams always did, he always did a pretty good job if we had some extra time doing some things around, the city that we might have been in. But if it's a quick trip, then, at the end of the day, you're there for a certain reason, right? Even if it is Vegas or New York or Chicago or wherever it might be, you're there for a reason, right? You're there to play the basketball game against UCLA. So, um, you know, Vegas is Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really, there's not, there's not much that you have to see over and over and over again when you go to Vegas. So, you know, I'm sure most of these guys have been to Vegas with AAU tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it's more of going in there and trying to lock in on UCLA and trying to get that win.
So you're saying we probably won't see Brady Manick at like a blackjack table or anything?
Hey, look, Brady looks like he might be somebody that rolls on red. I'm not gonna lie. Brady might be somebody that lives with, lives for that kind of adrenaline.
He's
But
just walking through the airport and, hey, let me just get 100 on red. Doesn't
yeah,
even break stride.
yeah, doesn't even stop. But no, I'm sure they'll have some fun, bro. A lot of these guys, this team is a little bit older, so I'm sure they'll be able to go down and, do a little something. But, I think for them, it's really one of those things. If they get this kind of win against, a number 4 ranked UCLA, it's a good look on the resume, and it can just kind of propel them into an even better season.
Yeah, you mentioned it. UCLA dealing with the COVID issues as of the time of this recording, where their game on Wednesday got canceled. We'll see what happens with that game. Carolina is going to Vegas to play a game. If it's UCLA, it'll be Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be back next week to break it all down. Justin, always appreciate it.
Always, man.